Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome along to our webinar this afternoon. It's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining. This afternoon is a really exciting opportunity for us to consider the role that volunteer readers play. So our schools obviously are strapped for cash a lot of the time. You know, we would love to have that time where every single one of us had one-to-one time with every single student. It's just not possible. So the idea that we can make use of volunteers to read with our young people, to help them to develop their reading identities wherever they are at on their reading journey, I think is really powerful. And so we connected with Coram Beanstalk, who run training and an offer around volunteer reading. And they have very kindly said that they will come and share what they do. So really this afternoon is about sharing the impact that those sorts of schemes can have so that you can replicate it in your schools. It's about those reading volunteers and the impact that they can make on our young people. The plan of it really is so that we can listen to a presentation from Rebecca Podelti-Cox, who is the Learning and Development Manager. Good afternoon, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Helen, and lovely to see everyone, or know that everyone's here. So, as Helen said, I'm Rebecca. I'm the Learning and Development Manager at Coram Beanstalk. We're a literacy charity, and we've been around for 50 plus years. And kind of since that time, we've been focusing on using volunteers. The charity actually, when it started, was called Volunteer Reading Help, and it's evolved and changed over time to Beanstalk and now to Coram Beanstalk. So that's always been our main purpose. But so this is who we are and what we do. Our focus has always and is always about developing reading for pleasure and really helping children who particularly either are struggling readers or don't want to read, really finding a way for them to enjoy books. Everything that we do focuses around that kind of one-to-one relationship. So having someone, whether that's an adult volunteer who comes into school, or in our secondary programme, it's an older student reading with year sevens, but having that one person that really cares about you as a reader has a huge impact and is really beneficial. So as I said, our primary programme is fully run by community volunteers and kind of people from all different walks of life, all different areas nationally, and they go into primary schools and read one-to-one with up to 3 or 4 children from a class. And in secondary schools, our programme is called Reading Leaders. And as I said, it follows a similar kind of idea, but we're training older students, and that's anyone from year 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, to become reading leaders in their school, kind of a reading mentor for year 7 pupils. And again, that focuses on those one-to-one sessions. We are also kind of doing a bit of work with early years as well. I know that won't be relevant to everyone, but just so that you're aware. And that's all focused around supporting parents to read with their children in a really effective way. And at the moment, that's kind of going into community libraries, running sessions there, and childcare centres, early years settings. And then all around that, our team at Coram Beanstalk, we're kind of delivering all of the ongoing support for our volunteers, for our schools, parents as well, and really just essentially finding any way that we can to try and support reading. As Helen said, we are, really, really aware of the struggles in school at the moment, and speaking as an ex-teacher as well, very aware of all of those pressures. And we are just really, really hoping and helping to be able to help more schools and children, of course. So I'm going to talk very briefly through our primary programme and then move on to the focus on the secondary one. And I guess when people think about using volunteers coming into schools, often the stereotypical thing is that they listen to children read and that they maybe might kind of work with the whole class and have 10 minutes listening to each child reading. What we do is very different to that. We are really focused on helping children feel really supported by their volunteer and by their reading helper, we call them. We want them to really experience a huge range of books, because that's often kind of obviously one of the key factors that's missing for lots of children who maybe haven't found the right type of book that they want to read, or the right genre that interests them, or the right topic. So we train our volunteers to really delve into how to find the right book for each child, because there always is one. You'll get there in the end. And we want children to enjoy reading, and that's not an easy task at all. But the way that we run our sessions, that we train our volunteers, is to really try and take the pressure off learning to read and decoding, and actually show them the really fun side of books. And with all of that, building their confidence and actually trying to help children believe that they can do this. And often, if children haven't had a reading role model there, actually having a volunteer who comes in to see you every week for half an hour and really puts in that time makes a huge difference. So very quickly, how our sessions work, and essentially what we encourage all of our volunteers to do in school is huge on book chat. So really talking to children about books, asking the kind of interesting questions, not just the reading comprehension style questions, sharing their own thoughts on what you're reading together, to really try and, as we've said, try and get to know those children and get to know what books are going to interest them. We focus a lot on adults and in secondary, the older students reading aloud to children. And again, that's often something that people are quite surprised by, particularly with older children. But we talk about the huge benefits that children of all ages and all abilities can get from having an adult read aloud to them. And then again, when children do choose to read in their sessions, how can we support them in a really positive way? And again, just make them feel good about themselves, rather than having any kind of anxiety about reading aloud and whether they're going to make mistakes or get it wrong. And lots of fun. So we encourage as many kind of book-based games and activities that they can do in the sessions to complement all of that work that they're doing on sharing books. And I think kind of one of the main, the biggest impact, and I'll share a little bit of our kind of impact data in a couple of slides, but one of the biggest things that we see is just an absolute kind of growth in confidence in children, and actually improvement in their well-being. So it's sort of approaching lots of different avenues for children. So as I said, this is our impact here. This is taken from our kind of last year's data survey, and you can have a look there just at kind of what different parts of each child we're able to really make progress with. There is absolutely improvement in reading engagement and reading skills through all of those things, the reading aloud and the book chat. But above all, there's that confidence and self-esteem, and I think that's particularly important for having someone there who believes in you to really build that confidence. So any questions at this point, or things people would like to add in?
We've just had, I think it's Heather, if I remember your name correctly, that she's got that book and she brought it to read to her children, and it's a good conversation starter. So start.
Oh, is that You Choose by any
whether
chance?
You're in year 7 or that, yeah. So yeah. She was just advocating that one.
Fantastic. And You Choose is, by far our most popular used book by every single reading helper that goes into school with, like you said, any age is one of the best books for book chat, and there's a great series of them, so lots to choose from. The next thing we're going to look at, that's just the numbers from last year, if you kind of want to see the figures of how many kind of volunteers we're working with, how many schools, and how many children we've supported throughout that. So we're going to have a very quick go at, I talked about how important we try and stress reading aloud to children is, and often that's kind of one of the things, as I said, in training, that volunteers are sort of surprised that they might be doing when they go into their sessions. So I'm just going to give you a quick activity to do. And I do apologize. I know it's the end of the day and you might be a little bit tired, but I'm going to ask you just to read this aloud. And I know everyone's on mute. And I know that no one's got a video on, so can't see you. Normally with our trainees, we're quite mean and we say we need to see your mouths moving. But I'll let you off. So I'm just going to put up the text and I'd like you to have a go at reading it out loud. Okay, and I'll mute myself.
I mean, be really brave. Do you want me to have a go at doing it? No.
You can put yourself on mute as well, Helen, and have a go. Go on, I'll watch your mouth move. Okay, there was some very quick reading there, Helen, I could see from your mouth. But
that was
first
hard.
question I want to ask you on that before we kind of, we're not really going to delve into the text right now, but in the chat would just be great. 1 word, 2 words. How did that feel when I asked you to read it out loud? Hard, first word. And don't worry if you're still trying to work it out. Confusing, frustrating, scary, difficult. And sometimes we do get lots of people that say, I actually really enjoyed that and I found it a challenge. But I would absolutely say that the main majority of people absolutely have those feelings, that kind of scary, difficult, probably makes you feel a bit anxious. And like I said, I didn't actually make you read it out loud. So sort of imagine if you were that good. So Kristen, it was quite fun in the end. And I think, as I said, we do get those people who enjoy that challenge, and you've worked out what the trick is. And I was extra mean because I didn't tell you that we normally say that all of the letters are reversed in each word. But I think you were all probably quite quick to work that one out. Any kind of ideas of why I've shared this, or why we share this with our reading volunteers? Yeah, so to show how it feels to struggle with the text, and particularly that first feeling of just being kind of essentially given words that you really don't understand and that you have to unpick letter by letter, or if you're breaking it up into phonic sound by phonic sound, can be a real struggle. I'm going to it is a real book and it's not backwards. It's a bit of so I'm just going to read you the extract now. I don't want you to worry about what's on the screen. Gus, Gloria and the others stuck to the trail. A left turn here, a right turn there, a gate, a gravel path, a house. The house was tall and dark. Mrs. Fritter climbed the front steps, switched on the porch light. The children in the shrubbery crouched and watched. They saw her open the door and step inside. So that was the extract read aloud, as you might have guessed. And again in the chat this time, how did that feel? Or how did it feel different to that first challenge I set you of having to read it kind of by yourself in your head? No pressure, so hopefully you could relax a little bit. You could listen to the story. You maybe started actually imagining a little bit more what was happening. Brilliant, you didn't need to focus on the words. And I wonder if anyone sort of got that relief. I wonder if anyone actually had any idea what type of story it was in that first, or type of extract. You get to use your imagination, exactly. So, as you can see, this is just a very snippet of really the benefit of having an adult or an older student or someone who is confident in their own reading to really share that with you. And as I've said, that can be at any point, whether you can decode fluently, actually you're still going to gain lots of benefits from having someone read aloud to you. So that's just a little bit of a part of what we do in our primary program, and we get really good consistent feedback from all of our schools who use our reading helpers. As I said, back to that impact, the kind of the real comment on just how well relationships are built. Our program, we normally, or schools normally keep their reading helper with each child for often up to a whole school year. Sometimes they might change halfway through. So they actually have a really long time with that person, and they really get to know them and get to know what books really work for them. And as I said, we'll always have reading helpers at the start of the year who are saying, oh, I can't find a book that works for this child. And they will always get there in the end. See, some children, it's much quicker. And some it takes longer, but they will find something that works. So thinking now about our secondary programme, and as I mentioned at the start, it's called Reading Leaders. In this, we sort of are following the same idea that we used for our reading helpers in primary, and we've sort of experimented with having actually adult volunteers go into secondary schools as well, and we do have some schools that ask us to train community volunteers to go in and work with their younger students in secondary. But what we've found kind of most effective, and what most secondary schools have really enjoyed and wanted, is where we can use this peer mentoring approach, and actually they can use their fantastic older students, and they need to recruit them quite carefully. And as I said, it can really go from anyone year 9, much more often it's kind of year 11s, year 12s, who are actually carrying out the sessions with their year 7 reading partners. Again, it follows that kind of, they're having a weekly session. We kind of say to run the programme for up to 10 weeks, but again, schools will often come back and tell us they just wanted to carry on, and they've carried on for the whole year with their reading partner, which is fantastic to hear. And in all of those sessions are sort of around, again, the same thing. How do we improve children's reading confidence? And often those children who come in year 7 have been sort of missed in primary school, or they sort of, something's still not clicking for them with reading, and they're thrown into that secondary environment and are actually quite lost. So again, this is our impact on last year's our Reading Leaders course. As you can see there, we did 40 courses, and we got lots of schools who do come back to us year on year and keep training the next cohort of reading leaders. And again, you can see there the impact for both the year 7s and the Key Stage 4 children is huge. It's difficult to say who benefits from the programme the most, I would say, but it's absolutely a kind of a joint thing that in actually even lots of the reading leaders comment themselves on how much they found out about themselves as readers by doing that, by being the person who's finding out about someone else. So that's kind of a bit of the impact. And again, for the older students, there are huge benefits. Particularly our training that we deliver, they love. It makes them feel like they are kind of adults, and that they're in, it's quite, it's a professional role that they're needing to do. They've got a lot of responsibility. Does also give them accreditation towards the DofE Bronze Award as well. So lots of schools are keen to use that as part of it. And for those younger pupils, I think any interaction that they have with an older role model in school is great for their sort of confidence and how they feel. And again, sometimes it's actually more effective than when they're maybe with a teacher or another member of staff, because there's potential for feeling less judged. So I've just popped in here before we have a look at some of the kind of activities, a couple of bits of recent feedback. And I just thought this one from Oliver in year 7, I think really highlights how that shared reading, where they'll read one page, read 2 pages each, the way that they use book chat to actually talk about the words that they're reading just has that huge impact. And it seems like something quite simple, but if that's missing, and if that year 7 doesn't have someone doing that with them one-to-one, they're going to be left struggling and continue to find it very difficult. So like I said, the sessions work in a similar way, and when we train our secondary students, we're going through all of those kind of important parts about book chat, book talk, we call it for secondary, and them reading aloud, and again, how to support their partner when they read to them. The range of books used can vary. We sort of leave it up to schools to really choose how they want to use books in the session. Some will kind of maybe use one book that they keep reading for the 10 sessions, or with some children they might change different books, again trying to find the right book that suits the child that they're with. And actually books is something that we're looking into trying to integrate into our reading leaders program, and hopefully developing a bit of a book pack that we can include to send out to schools, because the thing that we all really want is lots of books. So I'm going to again just give you a little bit of the warm-up activity that we do for our reading leaders. You don't have to do all 3 of these, so you can pick your favourite one, either 3 times where you've read something in the last 24 hours, including these slides, and if you just pop any of those answers up in the chat, that would be great. And great, I can see lots of bits in the chat about using volunteers as well, and using old community volunteers. Oh, and I think that question around choosing the book, yeah, that's part of our training as well, is about how do you know, if you've got a nice selection of books, how do you get to do that with your reading partner? And yeah, absolutely, it's a joint decision, and one that the reading partner wants to read, but one that the reading leader thinks they can access as well. And again, you can sort of probably guess why we open up our training for this. And it's really about, as much as we want the reading leaders to support the reading partners, they need to know about themselves as readers as well. And they need to know kind of what is the value of reading, and why do I need to do it? Fantastic. Knitting pattern, brilliant. And I think this is really a nice way, like I said, of actually getting the reading leaders to see how important reading is, and actually think about, well, if I'm going to support someone else to do this, then how do I kind of approach that? And as I said, the other activities that we do, I've got one up here all about book talk. You can see there we have, I don't know how everyone feels about AI, but we've jumped on the AI bandwagon and made a Cory Stalk-Bean or Coram Beanstalk book here, just to put something out there. And this is sort of our start of, well, how do we start talking to our reading partner about, again, maybe what books they want to choose, and actually once they've chosen a book, are they going to be interested in it? Is it going to be kind of the right level for them? And how are we going to find that out? So I'm just going to hand over to you one last time, I think, to have another little go at something. But just want you to have a look at the quest, and you can see there our tagline: will Nancy escape the caliphs to return the collection of spargles? And the reason why we've got some random made-up words in there is again about how we look at vocabulary in books once we get into the pages. But what would you ask? What book talk question might you say, or comment might you say to the child to see you know what they're interested in, and to see if they've got any thoughts about the book? If you just pop those in the chat, that would be great. Great. So what does the cover of the book make you think is going to happen? Brilliant question for getting them to start thinking about the story. And again, using that as a reference of, is this a book I want to read? Is this a book that I want to choose? Great. So the setting of the story, the characters, all really key parts that, you know, again, for lots of those year 7 children, they might not be thinking about, particularly if they're reading it on their own. Having that older reading leader there to be the person that's getting them kind of excited, that book buzz about what they're going to read, is really, really helpful. As I said, at Beanstalk, we are all about the book talk. and as much as it is kind of, you know, as important a part of the reading, because it's often that thing that actually gets the child more engaged in what you're reading. And that needs to be modeled to them. You know, they need to know how you interact with the text, and how, if you come up with you know, find a word that you're not sure about, how you approach that. But more than anything, you know, finding out about the story and finding out about what happens is really key. We make it really clear, and this is for both our volunteers and our reading leaders, that we don't ever want it to feel like a test for children. We don't want it to feel like they're being interrogated, questioned, and they've got to get the answer right. So it's always about striking that balance, about kind of giving your own opinion, not asking questions that you're trying to sort of deliberately catch children out or see if they know something, and actually asking lots of questions that you think they do know the answer to first, to build up their confidence. And actually there it says minimal questions, so it not being a kind of just you asking the child questions, by putting in, I wonder what might happen next, or, you know, I wonder if Nancy is afraid of the calafs. Just opens up that conversation and makes it become a bit more of a normal conversation about a book. And all that way through, you know, hoping that the reading partners are going to gain confidence and actually be the ones to sort of ask questions when they need to know something. I think that's often kind of one of the best ways of showing that a child has gained confidence, is when they feel able to say, I don't know what that word means, or, you know, how can we work that out together, can be a really great benefit of book chat. So I've kind of swizzled through book chat. Oh, and I did have, we've got time for one last activity, Helen. Yeah, let's do one last one. So again, this is around actually you, the reading leader, reading aloud to their partner. And obviously you can see we've got a bit of a cartoon here, and all I'd like you to do in the chat, and we do a bit of a competition about who can get there first. Just tell me what's happened. What's happened? Can you tell the story? Sign writer wasn't understanding what he was writing. That's a nice description of it. And how, if the sign writer is sunk into the quicksand, or she, yeah, we don't know, put the sign in the wrong place. Every time that we do this, you know, you will get a complete range of different answers and different kind of interpretations of the story. The sign writer didn't plan ahead. Brilliant. And I think, you know, again, this is highlighting that there can be so many ways that we might all approach a text. Obviously, this is using a picture to kind of help that and make it more accessible. But there will always be ways in which children need lots of different types of approaches when it comes to reading, and that kind of relationship that they have with their reading leader or their reading volunteer is what really helps build their confidence and helps them gain those skills, because very quickly, you know, you might be able to see what might be missing, or what the reading partner might not have understood. And I'll leave that last one, because I think your descriptions of the story were fantastic. Sign writer working to time and gone for a tea break. Yeah, Kirby, I've never seen that one before. Yeah, absolutely. Could have just chucked his hat or her hat in the quicksand. As I said, I know I've gone through quite quickly, and I've just given you some snippets of really how we're getting people to try and think about approaching reading on a one-to-one basis. In terms of how we support schools with our Reading Leaders programme, once you've done the training, it sort of doesn't finish there. So we give you lots of resources as well. Every school will have a coordinator who's in charge of sort of running the programme. And, you know, we are, as ever, always aware that can be an extra responsibility, but we try and make it as light as possible, in terms of, we give you all of the resources that you'll need to do the sessions. The training is all done by our lovely training team. They're normally done in two-hour sessions that can be fitted into the school day, although some schools have chosen to do them after school with pizza as well in the library, which can always be a fun one. And all of the reading leaders get a logbook, and really that takes you through how to run the programme over 10 weeks. And I haven't gone through it too much, but a big part of the training is actually getting the reading leads to think about their organizational skills and think about how they can plan for the next session, how to reflect on what's happened in each session, and lots of the information in that logbook will really help them with just running it themselves. And then at the end, there's always an opportunity for really sharing the huge amount of progress you'll have seen in that impact, that there is always progress on both sides. And actually having that 10-week program really gives both the reading leader and the reading partner a big sense of kind of accomplishment, that they've done something really effective. So that's sort of how we support. And then again, when you need anything or any questions, we're always here as well. So I'm going to sort of pause there. I mentioned briefly that we're kind of looking at how to integrate book packs into our secondary offer as well. At the moment in our primary programme, we supply each of our partner schools with a starter pack of books. So we're always on the lookout for recommendations of books that work really well with that kind of transitional year 7 stage. So actually, if anyone has ever got book recommendations, please do send them our way. We're always very keen to hear from you with those. And we'll pause there and go to any questions or any thoughts or anything that people would like to share.
Lots in there to get us thinking. And I loved that somebody did say earlier that they are actually running a scheme where it's 1 hour of community service each week as part of, and part of that. So there's lots of different community service going on by the sounds of that. But part of it is reading interventions for Key Stage 3. So it'd be great if anybody else has got any sort of top tips about running this sort of activity. You can put those in there as well. Any sort of barriers that you've come across with this. I know that the one thing that it pinged me, I love that you mentioned about the organisation skills of the older students. I found that when I put this into place and I did the sort of older students with the younger ones, I wish I'd have known about this, because that training I think is really important. But it was the fact that they would just say, oh, I forgot, or oh, my year 7 didn't turn up, so well, did you not think to go and find them, like in their tutor? I mean, it's that sort of proactivity about them leading it. Quite passive. So I like that the training includes that organisational skills element, definitely.
Can I just say, I thought, sorry, it's Carol. I just thought the idea of a reading log for the support, it's a great record for us as well to see, you know, engagement, enjoyment, and the change and that transition and that journey. So I have thought about that, and I think that sort of gives also I guess authority or importance or status to the person who's actually doing the reading support. So brilliant, that was great.
Absolutely. It's that kind of that idea that you know, as I said, it's that, you know, it is like doing a real job, you know, or it's certainly as close to that. And you know, we'll often say to our reading leaders that, you know, we do exactly this with lots of adults who go and do this in primary schools, and actually often it's the year 12s and 13s that are the best at doing it.
So thank you. Great. Thank you.
I agree, Carol. It's that evidencing the impact of doing it. Obviously, we're all in a position where we have to sort of prove our worth. So I love the statistics that you shared, Rebecca, about the impact. But if you've got those records, as Carol says, to prove it, that's great. Hilary has asked, do you have groups across the country, or is it just particular locations around particular cities?
Is this for reading leaders, Hilary?
She hasn't specified. Oh, yes.
Yes, so reading leaders, we can essentially run anywhere, because we offer the training online. We can do it in person in a few locations, so depending on whether you're in London or Leeds or Liverpool, but online training that can be delivered to anyone anywhere. And as we said, once you've kind of got all of the resources and you've got the stuff, then you know you can run that program yourself. And as we said, it's that those reading leaders that you've trained, lots of schools, if they've trained them in year 12, well. They'll use them again the following year to do another cohort, or they'll do a couple of cohorts within 1 year. So you can get a lot out of them as well from sort of one lot of training, I would say.
I, for one, I'm really passionate about this idea of young people leading on the reading for their peers, you know, just that little bit younger. I'm just going to share one. You know, when you said about how you've got older students with younger ones, we did some work with a local primary school. So our year 9s read with sort of year 4. And they came along to the school, and the one year 4 was so excited to be there in the big school library, and even asked if he could put the blazer on. So he asked his sort of, you know, partner in year 9.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of pride that they know somebody a little bit older, and that kudos, isn't it? So I think those relationships can really flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're all for getting reading leaders into primary schools as well. It's been successful on a few occasions where we've had all through schools where they've been able to do that. I think sometimes the logistical planning of getting, you know, the older students to the primary school at the right time, at the same time, but actually, it's really beneficial when that works as well.
Sufficient to say thank you again to you, Rebecca, for your time, for your expertise, for sharing what you do.
Thank you for inviting me along. It's been lovely.
Thanks a lot. Bye.